Hi, my name is Brad.
And I'm Sonny.
And we are the Two-Faced Detectives. Today we're going to analyze a video about a missing boy in Idaho named Deorr Kunz Jr. This was a request by a concerned viewer that asked us if we could analyze the parents. There's been a lot of rumors on social media as to their involvement in the disappearance of their son Deorr.
Keep in mind the father's name is also Deorr. We will analyze the only video to date that they have given an interview of. It would be nice to have had more in-depth video where the interviewer asks more questions, but this will have to do for now. There's a documentary coming out in the future, and the parents were interviewed in it, but the release date is still pending.
So about this story, Deorr's parents are claiming that they were up camping near a reservoir with their grandpa and a friend of the grandpa when the parents decided to walk up a ways, leaving little Deorr behind with grandpa.
Evidently, the grandpa wasn't paying attention, and somehow little Deorr was nowhere to be found. The possibilities are that he wandered off and fell in the creek and was washed up on the reservoir, or he was carried off by a wild animal, or he was abducted.
We want to see if we can determine whether or not foul play was involved on the part of the parents. Some have speculated that an accident occurred and the parents are covering it up. So let's get started.
All right, Deorr, so take us back. Was it Friday?
Yes. I'm not sure what day it is today.
Today's Monday. It was Friday.
It was Friday.
Friday at about 2:26 is when was it 2:26?
It was 2:36 when I called.
It was 2:36 is when she called.
Deorr feels the need to express he is a father that has been so absorbed in the search for his son that he's lost track of time. This is very likely an exaggeration to evoke sympathy for himself.
This could be a sign of guilt and a need to have people put their guard down that this is indeed a father who is concerned for his boy.
But we need to be careful here because we don't want to make the Othello's error, as Dr. Paul Ekman calls it.
In Shakespeare's play Othello, Othello had been duped into believing that his wife Desdemona was having an affair with Cassio. When Othello confronts Desdemona about the affair, she demands that Cassio be called in to her defense.
But Othello tells Desdemona that he had Cassio put to death. When she hears this, she begins weeping because she knows that the only witness that could exonerate her is now dead. But Othello mistakes this for a sign of guilt, that she was weeping over the death of her lover, and he kills Desdemona.
In a similar manner, we must keep in mind that in today's world, when a kid goes missing, the first to be suspects are the parents. And to top it off, there are already rumors going around in social media.
So it is very possible that he feels the need to parade the fact that he is a concerned father in order to dispel any thoughts to the contrary.
It was 2:36 is when she called, and I was in the truck hauling down to the road to try and get service because I didn't think one bar would get it. So she got very, very lucky. I was blessed that she was able to get service because I didn't want to try and risk getting halfway through my talking to the 911 and have it cut off. So I went down to where I knew I can get a little service about a half mile down the road. We searched after about 20 minutes and in a dead panic, not knowing where he was in such a small area and never being there, I knew I was in trouble.
Precise timing is nothing to raise concern. With cell phones nowadays, it's easy to know what time you called precisely. I know I've done it before.
And reporters many times go over with the interviewees the topics and bullet points they'd like to cover. Sometimes they rehearse completely.
It's understandable that the time is important to the parents because if there was an abduction, then you'd want the public to know the time when your child went missing, just in case someone saw something. He also talks about his point of view a lot. He doesn't include her, but is taking responsibility for it all. Watch his pronoun of I.
Many times men take it on their shoulders because they feel that they need to be the rock in the relationship. He possibly feels guilty of something. What that guilt is remains to be seen.
I knew I was in trouble.
Now, he said, I knew I was in trouble. So he has definite guilt issues, but we can't jump to conclusions at this point. He could be feeling guilt over something that happened to his son, such as an accident, but he could just as well be feeling guilty because he wasn't there to save him from being abducted.
As soon as I got a hold of them, they told me that she was on the other line with them, and they had our location, and they were on our way.
This part is verifiable and can be seen by the fact that the 911 call released was that of Jessica. So far, this story is lining up with the facts.
And the FBI can pinpoint his ping location at the time of his call, so they could verify that he was in fact where he said he was.
It has been suggested that he left in order to dispose of little Deorr's body while Mom called 911. Now, I don't know if they did this or not, but the FBI could easily check the area around where his phone was pinged and search for Deorr's body out there.
Notice also how he changes from third-person point of view to first when he says, "They had our location and they were on our way." This is possibly because he was recalling what they said verbatim in the middle of his thought, and so he is accessing a real memory. Or it's just a speech error and part of his idiosyncrasy of his vocabulary.
Lehigh County Sheriff and Sam in Search and Rescue, you could not ask for a better group of people, volunteers in Search and Rescue, and just everybody. You couldn't ask for better people.
Here he praises the rescuers. This is a bit unusual at this point because it isn't mission complete. This tells me that he believes the search is off. Even though he says that it is not, he doesn't believe that.
He's pretty small for his age, but he moves pretty good, and that was our concern. He was right with us.
Okay, now here he talks about his son. And what we're looking for whenever he talks about his son is whether he uses negative language or not.
Guilty people tend to demonize the victim in order to gain sympathy for themselves.
For instance, if you've ever lied about being late for work, you may have blamed it on your stupid car. You use negative words to show that you're just as upset about the issue as your boss is. And this is similar to what abusive parents do.
In this case, you might expect him to say something like, "He's always running off, and he's very hard to catch." Here we don't see that. He uses realistic language, nothing that denotes he is an abusive father.
Another thing to note is he doesn't speak in chronological order. He started off the interview by describing events from the 911 call forward, and then the rescue efforts, and now he's back to talking about before the 911 call.
This is a good sign. Liars tend to speak in chronological order because they have to recite from a pre-rehearsed script. In fact, good interrogators will often ask details out of order in order to trip up the liar.
He was right with us. Where it's at is, I thought it would be perfect to go camping there because it's enclosed by walls of mountains, and there's not much space around there that he could go. And our biggest concern was the creek, which was knee deep, few feet wide, but he's a little guy.
Here Deorr says he was right with us, and perhaps this is a product of a guilty conscience. He feels the need to assure us that they are responsible parents, and because Deorr evidently picked the spot, and if you notice, he said, "I thought it would be the perfect place to go camping there because it's enclosed." So this could explain why he feels so much guilt.
He acknowledges that the creek was a concern and admits it was deep enough for a young boy to drown. This is language that a parent trying to avoid guilt would not acknowledge.
They finally, yesterday, we were able to put that to rest, and Lehigh County Sheriff, Sheriff Dave, and the rest of the sheriffs have put out that they assured me there is 100% chance that he is not anywhere in that water, around that water.
He is relieved that they could discount the creek as the culprit. This may be why he was praising the authorities. This is a sensitive topic to him because he proceeds to give an explanation as to why they can discount the reservoir in the creek. That is a good sign that there was no foul play. If foul play was involved, then this subject would not likely be sensitive to him.
We say not likely because there's one reason that it would be sensitive. That is to put the spotlight on the creek as the culprit. But that is usually only found in offensive interrogative questioning in order to keep the investigator focused on a certain topic. But Deorr is not being questioned, so this is unlikely. He's simply telling a story.
And there was not a trace of my son found.
The use of the wording "my son" is significant. He's taking ownership. This is the opposite of distancing language. Now, think of Bill Clinton when he said, "I did not have sexual relations with that woman."
That woman is distancing language. But saying "my son" or even using his name shows a closeness, especially since he could have used "our son," but he took it personal.
Guilty people usually distance themselves from the victim. Take a look at this video of Patsy Ramsey.
Aren't made up her mind, and the rest of the Boulder Police Department, we believe, made up their minds the 26th of December.
Oh, there was us.
You know, that it was the parents.
So did you notice that? Listen once more.
Oh, there was us.
You know, that it was the parents.
Oh, there was us.
You know, that it was the parents.
Oh, there was us.
You know, that it was the parents.
So John Ramsey uses the police thought it was us, but she changes it with distancing language, saying that it was the parents. This makes it likely that she is actually the culprit in Jean Bernet's death.
And there was not a trace of my son found. There still isn't, but the search is on. That's the hearsay of things has kind of gotten way out of hand. The search is so far has been put on that has been suspended, and that is not entirely sure or true. Sheriff Dave of Lemhi County, I just spoke with him on the phone this morning. He has got horseback riders and trackers up there right now, and very, very advanced professional.
He talks about the search and tries to clarify that the search is still on, but he seems to believe that there's no longer a need to search in that area, but to broaden the search.
Just tell us a little bit about, first off, how are you guys holding up? I know a lot of people are praying for you. They're concerned.
Friends and family, and hoping to be strong for him.
The support around us is what's, I know, keeping me together, because if we didn't have all of our family, the minute I called my mom and she was up there in a matter of hours, and same with the rest of our family, they were just up there around us.
Luckily.
About this time, a reporter asks how they're holding up, and she shakes her head no, but we're not really sure what she's thinking at this moment, so we're just not going to speculate on that.
She also smiles but suppresses it. Why is she smiling? Well, she explains. And this topic is especially sensitive to her because throughout the interview, she doesn't speak much, so when she does, we know it's sensitive.
So what is the reason she's smiling? Well, it is because she's reflecting the help and support she has received from family members like her mom.
This is a good sign because guilty members are not eager to speak unless they think the other party is about to incriminate them. But that doesn't seem to be the case here, because he starts out saying the same thing she says, so they're in agreement. It seems she wants to take this opportunity to thank her mother and friends and family because she is grateful.
She was up there in a matter of hours, and same with the rest of our family. They were just up there around us.
I also feel that this is a good time to point out that smiling, laughter, and even all-out joking is not inappropriate for both grief and, in this case, distress. Many people think that just because they see parents doing these things when their child is missing or even found dead, that it seems odd and that the parents had to have done it. But that's actually quite contrary. It's called distractive humor. Sigmund Freud wrote about this paradox in his 1928 investigation into humor, wit, and its relation to the unconscious. Freud argued that laughter was a coping mechanism, a way of dealing with the unspeakable pain of everyday life. He gives the example of a prisoner about to be locked in the gallows, who says to his guard, "Well, this is a good beginning to the week." The prisoner makes a joke because he doesn't want to cry. His ego distracts his conscious brain from the unspeakable misery of the moment. That's not to say that laughter or smiling is always appropriate. What we look for is context. If a parent is describing some horrible event, like in the case of Diane Downs, we would most definitely not expect to see smiling. But if the parent is describing a pleasant memory of maybe the child's first words or something, then smiling is appropriate. To demonstrate what is appropriate for the context, let's look at a video of Diane Downs. In this clip, Diane Downs describes seeing her daughter, Christy, who, according to Downs, was shot by a carjacker, bleeding to death on the floor of her car. Now, what we expect to see here is any sign of fear in her eyes as she recalls the event, because she should be afraid for her daughter's life. Let's see if we see that at all.
But at night, when I close my eyes, I can see Christy reaching her hand out to me while I'm driving, and the blood just keep coming out of her mouth. And that, maybe it'll fade too with time, but I don't think so. That haunts me the most.
Now, we didn't see any sign of fear here. No, instead we see what's called duping delight. After she told her tale, there was a bit of time in between, and she thought that her story was being believed. And so now she's delightful because she just duped the reporter, or so she thinks. She really didn't dupe anybody.
We have hope is the thing. Hope is what keeps it going. Hope is because the search is not over. Search is not done. We will find him, no matter what.
We're going to find him, no matter what. This is a good statement because it is not infinitive, meaning it does not hold out the possibility of never finding him. Now, if he would have said, "We'll never stop looking for him," then I would be concerned.
Yeah, especially after screaming his name, we have nicknames for him. No sound of him.
This little boy
crying.
is not.
She mentions that they were screaming his name and they have nicknames for him. So this indicates truth because she didn't give too much detail. They obviously were calling him by his nicknames, as well as by name. She never mentions what those nicknames are. A guilty party would add unnecessary detail to help sell the story. She had an opportunity here to do just that.
That doesn't mean if she would have added that detail that it would indicate guilt, but the absence of it is certainly telling.
The boy is not. He's a goer and a mover, but he's not. He does not go away from his parents. He does not.
Yeah, he's very attached to us.
So this is very unusual.
Very, very unusual, sir.
He's a goer and a mover, but he does not go away from his parents. This statement is telling because once again, he has the opportunity to give reason for doubt, but instead he tells it like it is. He doesn't speak of his son in a bad light. Also notice he speaks of his son in the present tense.
Joe Navarro mentions a case he worked on in his book Dangerous Personalities, about a woman named Krista Decker. The case took place in 1999 involving a mother of 3, and her 6-month-old baby boy was taken from her vehicle while she went to get a shopping cart at a store. During Joe Navarro's interview of her, he told her he was interested in knowing what her children were like.
There was a stark contrast in how she talked about them. She spoke warmly of the 2 older children, but had a certain coldness when she spoke about the missing son. One of the statements she makes when describing her 6-month-old, she says, and I quote, "He was always a good baby." And then the 2 living kids, she said, are good kids.
As you can see, she talked about the 6-month-old in the past tense. And this led Joe Navarro to conclude that the child was already dead. And soon thereafter, she admitted she suffocated her baby in a plastic garbage bag because he wouldn't stop crying.
This case reminds me of another case from Australia, the case of William Terrell. Watch this video of William's parents, who say similar things about their boy who was abducted.
William's parents are desperate for their little boy to come home. They're convinced he didn't just wander off on his own.
He's not a wanderer, not a child to run away. He's got a really good sense of adventure, but he's got a really good understanding of his limitations. Yep. He's not a kid that would just run into something and he would stop and think. He would consider what he would do before he would do anything else.
The boy is not. He's a goer and a mover, but he's not. He does not go away from his parents. He does not.
Yeah, he's very attached to us.
So this is very unusual.
Very, very unusual, sir.
Also, Deorr used the word "sir" here. This is unnecessary politeness. Liars tend to use formal language, but this could also be his upbringing, so we count it as a hot spot.
You told them about the EMT bag. That needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I know social media can be a good thing, but it can also
we just don't want anything twisted.
Yeah, we don't want to twist it. So clear up any rumors that you've seen or heard.
We need to talk about that.
One thing that concerned me.
We want to get to that. What's most of the biggest?
We enhanced the audio because this was very hard to hear in the original video. Someone off to the side asked them to address the EMT bag. Unfortunately, they never get to that. I don't know if this was something they wanted to avoid because they don't feel it's important enough and they don't want others distracted, or if they're hiding something about it. But it would be nice to know what this is about.
I don't think they were afraid of this topic, though. Neither one of them showed any signs of fear. Fear is displayed in several ways. A widening of the eyes is the most common. You'll see the whites above the iris. A good example of this is shown in this O.J. Simpson deposition.
And remember those bloody footprints at the scene of the murders? Prosecutors at the criminal trial said they were made by size 12 Bruno Magli shoes, and there were only 299 pairs sold in the USA. In the video deposition, he insisted he never owned a pair.
Because I know if Bruno Magli makes shoes that look like the shoes they had in court that's involved in this case, I would have never worn those ugly shoes.
But then this photo surfaced of Simpson wearing Bruno Magli's shoes 9 months before the murders took place. Look at his reaction when he's called back to give another deposition and is shown the photo.
That is a picture of you looking at Exhibit 1, correct?
It appears to be me, yeah.
For more ways to detect fear, you can check out our video on fear in the link below.
But I've heard everything from, I am a truck driver. I've heard everything from my company won't let me come home off the road to look for my son. I was there the entire time, and my employer, 4 hours after my son went missing, has been up there day and night, has not slowed down.
He puts his hand to his heart. This is almost always a genuine and trustworthy response.
Are there any rumors that you've seen, or anything you want to clear up, Jessica?
Somebody at the store, Ledor said, it was one of the ladies that had worked at the store, said that they saw a gentleman and a younger blonde boy matching our description of our son, really filthy, buying candy for him, and he was just bawling in a black truck. That is the only.
Here's the problem. My pickup
he
truck's
drives
black.
a black truck.
As a family, we went down to get a few things.
So it could have
Earlier, it was earlier
me,
that day.
But they claim it was at 6 o'clock that evening, and we were search and rescue until what, 3:45?
Yeah, from
we haven't left the camp since 1 o'clock that afternoon. So it's just a lot of hearsay, and
this story is important for them to clear up because they don't want people to be looking for a black truck when it's their own, and they consider it to be a red herring. But this story is important on two fronts, that which we just mentioned, and that there are witnesses that show that little Deorr was indeed with them when they went camping. This is in contrast to the conspiracy theories that proclaim that the whole camping thing was a sham and just a ploy to cover up an accidental death at the Deorr home or other place before.
Palms up displays are typically an honest display.
And
was anybody camping around you?
That we don't know. I come to find I didn't know the area, and I didn't know. It's very open, but you can't see much. There's a road that goes up and along the top. We're camped underneath the reservoir, basically right below it, and you can go up above the reservoir. And I didn't even know the road was. I didn't know the road was up there.
Using gestures, liars are typically frozen from the torso up. All their focus is on the lie, and many times they don't use gestures. This is cognitive overload.
So they could have come into your...
They could have came in and you couldn't never know it. And with,
so they could have come into your...
They could have came in and you couldn't never know it. And
so they could have come into your...
They could have came in and you couldn't never know it. And with...
The picture quality is bad, but it looks like there's a lateral movement of the mouth when the reporter asks if it was possible for an intruder to come into the camp without them knowing. This could be fear, and if it is fear, that would only be appropriate for an innocent person in this context. Take a look at our video on fear, in particular around the 6:07-minute mark.
We were just, we decided we were going to go a little exploring. He was going to be good with Grandpa by the campfire. We weren't more than probably 50 yards away in 10 minutes. But the time we...
You will notice that they both use different units of measure. He says 50 yards, and she says 10 minutes away. This shows that they are recalling from memory and not a story they rehearsed earlier.
To the point I figured out he was gone. To the point I figured out he was gone. And I come back up in the creek and I back to the point I figured out he was gone. And I come back up in the creek and to the point I figured out he was gone. And I come back up in the creek and I actually...
When he says, I realized he was gone, she does a hard swallow. This is indicative of fear. Once again, this is a good sign that when she is recalling this event, it brings some emotions to the forefront, something a contrived story just wouldn't do.
To the point I figured out he was gone. And I come back up in the creek and I've actually seen there was a possibility that he may be with somebody, and that's what's possibility that he may be with somebody, and that's what's possibility that he may be with somebody, and that's...
Here she does a nostril flare and also takes a deep breath. The nostril flare could be a sign of anger, and the deep breath could be a sign of fear.
May be with some possibility that he may be with somebody, and the possibility that he may be with somebody, and that's what... Being his father also, that's where my heart and my gut tell me, but I'm not sure. So that's where I'm asking the public's help. Anything. Lima High County Sheriff is who's handling this, but they're not designed for systems quite like this. They've got 2 phone lines. And
after affirming his belief that Deorr is no longer up the mountain, he also states that he's not 100% sure because he doesn't want people to stop searching. This would not be expected of a guilty party. A guilty party would want the search to stop, not just up the mountain, but altogether. Now, you could argue that if he knows his son isn't up the mountain, then he would want the search to continue up the mountain to act as a red herring. But the fact that he wants the search to be broader and at the same time still be searching in that locality, that tells us that he's not trying to hide anything.
May not be the case, but it could be. So that's why we're trying to look at this aspect as well.
And you want people to keep sharing that photo?
Yes, please keep sharing his photo.
Here she does an inward lip roll. You may have noticed her do this several times throughout this video. This is used to conceal or suppress emotion. It is most commonly used to disguise anger or sadness, but can be used for most any emotion.
Tell me about the blanket.
This is his blanket. He doesn't go anywhere without his blanket, his cup, or his monkey. And all 3 of them were left at the campground. And
all 3 has to be with him.
Yes.
He will trip over them if he has to, but they are going with him. And this is the first time since he's been born, pretty much, he hasn't been without these things.
Yeah. And that's why another reason
why we're wondering.
Yes, because this is the blanket that we brought him home in from the hospital. This is what comforts him in all times.
This is an exact replica of a security blanket for everybody. This is his actual blanket. He does not go anywhere without it. That's our other concern of why.
Yeah.
The blanket is significant. She is holding on to it because it is the only thing that she has to remind her of her son. This is a good sign and to be expected of a grieving mother. Once again, we will refer you to the William Terrell case.
What are some of the other things that he...
Probably the one that he always slept with most of the time. When we always went to bed, he would always ask for it. Which was little Tara.
They're always funny things they get attached to, aren't they?
Yeah, and I just... He can't sleep without little Tara. So, yeah.
These are the things that were inseparable from him.
Yeah. So I just need him to be sleeping with something that he loves, looking after him, because he doesn't have little Tara.
I can even see the way you're holding it now. This is the most tangible thing you have right now.
That's all we've got of him.
That case has a lot of parallels to this one. The kid was abducted, but no one's seen it. The parents are holding on to William's most precious toys. The mother is clutching William's toys much like Jessica is clutching Deorr's blanket. The parents use similar language when describing their son. They acknowledge that he likes to play, but he knows his boundaries and wouldn't wander off.
Once again, Deorr uses a definite, "we will find you" statement.
He'd be out there and he happened to see this. What would you say?
We're looking for you, son, and we will find you. And we love you more than anything in the world. You have a lot of people who love you and are looking for you. Buddy will find you.
We'll
Daddy
never
will
stop
find you.
looking until we get you home.
I've got a 2-year-old and you guys have been all I've thought about the past 2 days. Is there anything you want to add, anything we didn't get to?
And now we see genuine sadness, especially in the father. We see it even more in other videos, such as the vigil video right here. What we see here is Deorr at a vigil, and here he's showing genuine sadness. You can see this in the eyebrows. The inner brow is raised and pulled together. Only 1 in 10 people can do this naturally. So this is called a reliable muscle by Dr. Paul Ekman. And whenever we see this, it is 90% sure not to be faked. And if you don't believe me, you can try doing this yourself. Lower your brows and pull them together in the center. And only raise the inner brow up, leaving the rest of the brow down. So we also see in this image that he has triangulation of the eyes. This is caused by the inner corner of the eyelid being lifted, and his eyes are welled up with tears. The lip corners are depressed slightly, and this is a complete expression of genuine sadness, and I have no doubt it's real.
He could be very, very close. He could be very far away. We don't know, but we are covering all bases at this point. Tonight.
So what we see here, let me go back and slow this video down. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm slowing the video down, and what we see, a few things that we see here. Let me go ahead and play a little. There we go. We see Jessica has a red nose, and this could be for many reasons. One, temperature. If it's cold, that can cause a red nose. Alcohol can be a cause. Stress and worry can be a cause, and irritation, such as a constant blowing of the nose. We can rule out temperature because on the day of the vigil, it was 83 for a high and 54 for a low, and at the time of this vigil, it was too warm for temperature to be causing that. And alcohol, I would say, is not likely. Stress and worry, very likely, but given the redness is not just on the tip of her nose, but also in the surrounding proximity, I would venture to guess that it is from crying and blowing her nose. And if so, this would indicate true sadness. It doesn't tell us why, but it surely tells us she's been crying. Her eye movements are normal, nothing to be concerned with there while she's talking. So now there is one other thing I want to point out here. Let me play the video back.
He could be very, very close.
And right about here, you can see her eyebrows. Her eyebrows change in a way that show a mixture of, it looks like sadness and fear. Probably a little stronger on the fear side, but there is definitely some sadness there as well. And the triangulation of her eyes show that she has some sadness as well. And both of these emotions, sadness and fear, would be appropriate at this time. Fear because Deorr hasn't been found, so they don't know what happened to him. And so they're not quite in the grieving state yet. but sadness too, because sadness is appropriate for losing your child, even if you don't know what happened to him. And it seems like the father shows more sadness than anything, and she seems to show fear more. But we can only speculate as to why. And later on in the video, we see more signs of sadness in the father. Once again, same thing I pointed out before. It's very well pronounced. Definitely a genuine sign of sadness here. I have no concerns about that.
To be on the lookout.
See our videos on sadness to see that dimples in the chin or any signs of chin muscles pushed up is a sign of forcing sadness, resulting in a pouty lip. Now, focusing back on Jessica again, we can see that she is not forcing her chin muscles up, but her lip corners are depressed. And although she's not showing as strong of a sadness emotion as the father, this is quite common. Her primary emotion here is fear.
You can see this in Elizabeth Smart's case. Look at the dad in comparison with the mother.
Please release Elizabeth. Please let her go.
Be strong and be ready to come because you're going to be with us soon. Every single.
Now, going back there, we can see, once again, the Lois Smart, her primary emotion there is not so much sadness because you don't see an elevated central forehead contraction. Instead, you see more fear or concern, mostly in her lips. At this point in the video, I've seen other pictures where she shows a little bit more fear. This video doesn't show it. I do have some stills that show it, though. Now, in this first still here, we don't see the fear so much in the mother, but we do see a contrast between the father and the mother. You see that he does have an elevated central forehead contraction, indicating sadness, whereas she does not. And this still here shows a closeness. Both their heads are tilted in toward each other. This is important, showing a strong bond between the two. Now, in this still, once again, we see a contrast between the father and the mother. He's showing the sadness in the eyebrows. She is not. Instead, now this one, she does show a little bit more fear, a concerned look on her face. The eyebrows are a little more straight, which is congruent with fear. Here's another good comparison still. Once again, the father showing sadness, the mother is not. It looks like her eyebrows are more straight, so she's showing a little more fear. In her mouth, she shows a little more sadness in the downturning of her corners of her lips. But that is all.
I've got a 2-year-old, and you guys have been all I thought about the past 2 days. Is there anything you want to add, anything we didn't get to?
Just if somebody has him, please don't hurt him. Just bring him home safely to us.
As the camera pulls out, we see a slight smile on Jessica's face. This is inconsistent with what we would expect here. But if you notice that the reporter says here that he has a 2-year-old and that they were all he could think about these last 2 days, that would make her smile acceptable. And in fact, he states that before the camera pulls back, so the timing of the smile is appropriate.
Just if somebody has him, please don't hurt him. Just bring him home safely to us.
No matter what it
where
takes.
He belongs. Even if you have to just leave him at a store where somebody else will see him and bring him home safely to us. I know.
Just drop him off.
Yeah, just drop him off somewhere
And if
where
that's not the case,
somebody is at so that they can see him and bring him home.
Notice at 14 minutes and 31 seconds in how she is now showing more emotion as she pleads. But what emotion is she showing? As she says, just if somebody has him, her primary felt emotion is fear. This is once again very encouraging. Her second emotion is in the triangulation of her eyes. This is indicative of sadness. Now once again we will refer to the William Terrell case. Notice the similarities in how both families plead for the safe return of their child.
Okay, in this clip, pay no attention that William's parents are silhouetted. This is really not by choice, not by their choice. This is in Australia, and it's part of an Australian law. They're not saying exactly what it is, for legal reasons that they can't be shown on TV, but it has been suggested by others that they are the foster parents of William, and under that law that protects foster children from being identified as foster children, they can't identify the parents. And so that is the speculation, and it seems to be pretty solid from what I've seen too. So that is probably the reason. It sounds like a stupid law in Australia. Probably needs to be changed, but it is what it is. Okay, so getting to the video, notice how William's parents plead for the release of their child from his captors. And notice any similarities to the Deorr Kunz case.
We need to know where he is, and we need to know what happened to him, because we can't live forever like this. Just give him back.
Do the right thing.
Give him back. Take him to a church. Take him to a police station. Take him to a school. Give him to someone. Give him back.
So in conclusion, after looking at all the hot spots, many of which we didn't address here because of time, it is our opinion, given the current evidence, that these are truly grieving parents. We hope that others seeing this video will continue to search and not give up hope. Deorr's parents believe that a man that they seen that day gave them a bad vibe and that he might have something to do with Deorr's disappearance. This may very well be the case, and Deorr's parents are currently working with a sketch artist, and as soon as they release the rendition, we will try to post a link in the description. Our guess is that this is an abduction by a woman or a couple that is childless. Because of Deorr's age, it makes him a prime target for this kind of abduction. Statistics show that women of this type usually meet the following criteria. The abductor is usually a female of childbearing age, 12 to 53 years old, and often overweight. She is most likely compulsive and often relies on manipulation, lying, and deception. She frequently says she lost a baby or can't have one. She is often married or living with someone. Her companion wants a child. She usually lives in the community where the abduction takes place, although I highly doubt it in this case. At least they probably don't anymore. She often becomes familiar with healthcare's staff members' work routine, and the victim's parents. She often pretends to be a healthcare employee. She may wear hospital scrubs. She may have staged a fictitious pregnancy, set up a nursery, or told friends that she is adopting a baby. She usually picks an infant of the same race as herself. She demonstrates a capability to provide good care to the baby once the abduction occurs. The abductor frequently visits the nursery and maternity units at more than one healthcare facility prior to the abduction and asks questions about procedures, feeding time, and the maternity floor layout. She frequently uses an exit stairwell for her escape. Now, these stats usually apply to an abductor that steals from a nursery or hospital, but it would certainly be no stretch for a woman like this to find no babies that she wants in a nursery and perhaps befriend someone in the community and stalk their grandchildren or children. This could be someone that the parents crossed paths with in their hometown and never gave it a second thought. I would check into all the women that have moved out of Idaho Falls in the time that Deorr went missing and see if any of these women fit this description. I'd say it's more likely that they're from the same hometown if they're a stalker than from around the Timber Creek area. And if I was a PI on the case, I would check a video of the local hospital and of the nursery ward around the time that Deorr came up missing, and also check around the time of his birth. It may be that an obsessive woman was planning on abducting him, and when she seen him at birth, she didn't have the opportune time to do it, so she planned it out. When the opportune time arose, she took it. She may have also seen them at a gas station on their way to a campsite and seen they had camping gear and decided to follow them there. Regardless of who took him, we hope that everyone will focus on finding Deorr no matter what your thoughts are on the parents.